Screen here. All right, can everyone see the screen? Okay, great, thank you. All right, so hello everyone. My name is Libor Vanc, Senior Product Designer for the Ecosystem Group. And for today's UX Showcase, I will be talking about viewing Jira data inside of Jira issue data inside of GitLab. All right. So to start, I'm going to summarize, just do a quick summary of how we've been iterating on this functionality so far. So in 13.2, we took the first step in viewing Jira issue data inside of GitLab with showing a read-only list of Jira issues. So we knew at that time that this first MVC wouldn't make that big of an impact on Jira users' experience or workflow inside of GitLab, but it was a necessary first step to kind of lay the groundwork. So I'm going to just quickly show what that looks like and what we did in 13.2, just to summarize again, for those of you who might not have seen it. So this is my personal project here, and then under the Jira integration settings, we've added this section called View Jira Issues in GitLab. And once that's turned on, you'll see in the sidebar here, Jira Issues nav item. And so once I click on that, I'll see a list of Jira issues here, again, that are read-only. So there's a little target blank icon here. So clicking on each one of these issues will take me to my Jira instance, and I could read the full details of that issue within Jira. So this was the first step. It's pretty basic right now, and we did some solution validation on it. So not that much usage, if any, was used for this sidebar here. So there's kind of two main problems with this right now. One, as I just mentioned, it doesn't provide that much detail. You still have to leave GitLab in order to get the full details of this issue. And two, so imagine if I was invited to this project and I wasn't the person that set up this integration in the beginning. So in that case, I'll be seeing a list of issues that might not, pertain to me or might not have anything to do with me because they've been set up by the integration admin. So I'm basically right now, I'd be viewing the issues that the integration admin has access to. So that's one of the problems also that we couldn't really move forward because we didn't want to start showing the details of Jira issues inside to GitLab users that might not necessarily have permission to view them inside of Jira. So we needed to support Jira's permission model. So going back to our timeline, how we iterated. So in 13.7, the access group really helped us here to pave the work on adding individual user credentials. So now that we have that in place, we're building on that. And so in 13.9 here, we want to be able to, again, surface more details of this Jira issues inside of GitLab. And then moving forward, we also want to, have the ability to create Jira issues inside of GitLab. So for example, we've also been heard that people want to create, for example, Jira issues out of vulnerability or out of a merge request and things like that. So we want to be able to do that inside of GitLab. And then also we want to be able to allow the editing of Jira issues and commenting inside of GitLab. So now that we have these permissions in place, we should be able to do that. So right now, I'll just show some work in progress of where we're at, kind of thinking about the ideal state of how this would work. So here's a quick Figma prototype. So as I mentioned, if I'm the integration admin and I'm setting up this integration, I want to, maybe enforce any GitLab users to basically force them to authenticate with their Jira credentials. This way I know that they're viewing content that, they have the rights to view. And then we also want to provide the option, maybe for smaller teams, it's okay that the Jira or the integration admin here just wants to share their Atlassian credentials and wants to allow their team to view the same issues that they have access to. So, but by default, we're going to require them to authenticate. So in that case, and this is still a little bit of kind of a hybrid between high fidelity and wireframe here. So, so in this case, this Jira issue list would look something like this. So by default, if I came to this screen and I have a Jira account, but I'm also using GitLab, primarily, I'll have to authenticate in order to view my list of Jira issues here. So in that case, I'll authenticate, I'll go through an Atlassian flow here, an auth flow, and then I'll see my list of Jira issues that I actually have permission to view inside of GitLab now. So in that case, it should be easier to kind of filter down issues that are assigned to me, and I'd see kind of my issues that I normally see in Jira. And then also, so now that I've been authenticated, I'll have the ability to view the details of the issue, comment, and now all these comments, are transferable. So if I did go to Jira now, I'll see that that same user commented, or the correct user commented on the Jira issue. So that's kind of where we're at now with this. Let's see here. Oh yeah, so I just walked through this ideal flow here. So just to talk about the scope of this work. So it seems, let's see here. Yeah, so for this NVC that I mentioned of just viewing the details of the issue, we scoped this NVC down to just focus on displaying the description, the Jira description, the assignee, the due date, and labels. Just because because that was pretty low hanging fruit and that was easily accessible from the API. But there are some details that we still have to work through that are kind of challenges. So some of those challenges that we're working through, and it seems kind of trivial to just show, the data that we already have in Jira and just display it in GitLab. But yeah, there's a lot of little details to work through. So for example, Jira's markdown has subtle differences. So this is just an example of the markdown in GitLab on the left and markdown in Jira on the right. So their headings are, for example, different. So, and then we also need to consider, what about showing images and other kind of content that might be in that description field. So, yeah, there's a lot of different things to consider. And I know Arturo, our backend engineer, has been working hard on kind of figuring out how to do this mapping or some kind of translation layer just for that description field. Also, something that we need to consider or take into account is, Jira has a lot of different other kind of data types or content types. So in this example here, you could see that someone could have the Jira or the Figma plugin actually set up for their Jira issues. So this is showing an embedded Figma design here inside the Jira issue that we would then be pulling into GitLab. So, so those questions, should we support it? How should we support it? So that's some things we need to work through still. And then there's also like I mentioned, the UX considerations. So, the goal isn't to recreate Jira, in GitLab for users that, primarily use GitLab, but we still want to make sure that we provide a really great experience for those types of users. So with that in mind, we really want to be selective and focused on what type of functionality we want to pull over. So we're going to keep iterating on this, and then that's where user research is really going to help us figure out what are those critical things that those core things that we do need to kind of replicate or move over, and what things are kind of nice to haves or not really necessary to move over or re-implement. So yeah, that's it for my showcase. Any questions?
I think you had a question in the agenda and you got a response from
great.
Pedro. So I don't know if we want to vocalize any of that or not. Then
yeah, sure. One of my questions I had was, so as I was working through this, there's a lot of different terminology. So I was wondering if anyone held, or there's different overlapping terminology. So for example, in Jira, you'll see the term pull request being used. And then in GitLab, you'll see we'll use merge request. So now that we're bringing in data inside of Jira, if you look at a Jira issue and then there's GitLab information there, you'll see the term merge request used in there. So I was wondering if there's any examples, and then I was wondering on our side, how much of Atlassian's terminology should we bring into our product? So if there's any question, or I guess if anyone has any examples of terminology being used from other third parties inside of our application, I'd love to see what we're doing there.
This isn't so much an example, but we are doing, we have a research issue on understanding terminology. So I'll tag you in that and you can jump in and share your thoughts there.
Nice, thanks, Holly. Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, and Pedro, I don't know if you want to vocalize yours or.
Yeah, I actually had a question for Holly. Yeah, never mind. I'll look into the issue, because one of the things that I've also thought about when we did the merge requests experience async critique, where the department participated in Figma, there was a lot of people, even people that in GitLab that were familiar with or could have been familiar with the terminology, were not aware of what a rebase is or what a fast forward merge is. And so I also have another issue opened regarding that, but I'll circle back with Holly. Yeah, what I suggested here is looking into, I mean, you're probably aware of the integrations, but the first things that came to mind were our GitHub integrations, because GitHub talks about using repositories, and a project in GitHub is something different than from us in GitLab. And I think they use the project's terminology for their boards feature, if I'm not mistaken. And so inside of GitLab, we try to talk about GitHub repository or only repository, and instead of using the term project. And then also with our CI integrations, some talk about builds, and we usually talk about jobs and pipelines. So that's the difference there. And I think, at least when I was working in portfolio management, a lot of other tools, including Atlassian's portfolio management tool, talked about programs and initiatives and things like that. And so, yeah, reaching out to folks from that group could probably help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good call, Pedro. Thanks for that. Yeah, look into that.
All right, I think I have the next one. Y'all are gonna get tired of hearing me say this, but I'm gonna keep saying it. UI text in your wireframes. How much are you working with tech writing on refining that?
A lot. I'm pretty sure Evan Reed is pretty sick of me too. I keep pinging him a lot. So.
Okay, cool. There were definitely some things that I saw in there that need further refinement. I'd say, if we need to somehow marshal a little more support around that, then please reach out. We can make sure that you have the support that you need. I'm glad to see Craig is on this call. One of the FY22 direction items for us is to make sure that tech writing is involved really early in the process. But then we also want to make sure that tech writing and UI copywriting are different skills. So we want to make sure that we're making sure that our tech writers also have the skills to support what you need for UI copy. So I'd say this is one where if we need to kind of maybe pull in Craig, for example, to make sure that you're getting what you need on that, then we can do that. But thank you for involving Evan early. That's great.
Yeah, thanks, Christy. And just to note, the wireframes that I just showed, I don't think they're still very work in progress. So I don't think Evan hasn't had a chance to look at them yet. So.
Okay, cool. That sounds good. And this is one of the questions we're trying to answer is how early do we get tech writers in that process, right? For a couple of reasons. So one is it's helpful to them to know what's coming now. Like now they get a view into, this is stuff I'm probably going to need to document later. Also, I think the earlier we can get them into the process, we lessen the risk of content that we don't want in our UI slipping in. So I know work in progress. We don't have a clearly defined process yet, but that's where we are with that. Okay, Marcel.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you. I got a question, and that's centered around the multiple different objects that you showed that they have in Jira issues that we are thinking about maybe porting over to GitLab, maybe not. Are there already any objects that you and your team have made a hard decision on that will not be ported over?
I mean, so far, the only ones are mostly just because of technical constraints, but we do need to do what I think once we get this a little bit, the detailed view in place, we can start doing another solution validation round, or just asking, the users, how valuable is this? Is this missing anything? And then just a little bit to do understand their workflow a little bit more. And then based on that knowledge, I think that'll really help us say, either yes to this or no to this. So.
Awesome, thank you. I think that's already going to pull in great for Justin's next question. Justin, you're on.
Yeah, I definitely led into that. So I was asking if there's any mechanisms that you have in place to help to, guide these decisions on what aspects of Jira get pulled in, and then if there's any sort of end game strategy or business goal that we're considering with this sort of integration. Are we hoping that eventually Jira people will just come over to GitLab, or continue with the sort of integrated usage of it?
Yeah, good question. So the first part of that question, how do we make decisions on this? So far it's been through solution validation, through that first round of, and then we just need to do more. So we're still at the kind of the beginning of understanding how, a Jira user that primarily, like a developer, that primarily uses GitLab, that also has a Jira account, how they would use this functionality. So we're still at the beginning of that. And then, the only mechanism right now is, user research. And then, I probably think of some other ways to maybe do some quick surveys on features, or maybe like maybe a quick survey to rank, which allow them to rank which features they want to see maybe in that. So that's something we still need to think through on, like, how we're going to approach that. The second part of, like, the business decision that you're asking about, there's some companies, that basically they're just not going to switch over to GitLab just for maybe, their smaller subset of engineers that they have that just use GitLab. So it seems like some of these larger organizations have, highly invested already in Jira because the rest of their teams use it, and just a smaller subset of developers will use GitLab only. So, we want to make sure that subset has a great experience, and plus there might be an opportunity there for them to completely switch over once they kind of get to try it a little bit more before they do a bigger investment. So it's, in a way, it's kind of, you could see it as like a preview into GitLab. And then I think, it will make the transition. It could make the transition a lot easier for them in the long term if they did want to switch. So. Let's see. Yeah, does that answer your question, Justin, or anything else you want me to touch on? Okay.
No, that was good. Sorry, I was taking notes and I was muted. So, yeah, thank you.
Sure, thanks. Mike Long, it looks like you have the next one here.
We can keep going. I'll take the answer offline so we have time for the other presentation.
Okay.
Thanks, Libor.
Yep. Thank you, everyone.